Welcome back, everyone. Today we are going to do a review on another one of Crosman's TR77 series break barrel air rifles. Back in January we reviewed the TR77 spring version. Today we are going to review the TR77 NPS, which is a nitro piston powered short barrel. This rifle, it's rated at 1200 feet per second with alloy pellets and at 1000 feet per second with lead pellets. It weighs 5.8 pounds. It is only 40 inches long, so it's very maneuverable out in the woods. And with Crosman's nitro piston in there, you can cock it, load it, put on your safety, and go trogging through the woods and hunting squirrels and rabbits and whatnot. It has a composite stock. It has Crosman's nasty trigger, which this one is one of the bad ones. It has a kind of a skeleton stock in the back and a removable butt pad for storage. Here you can see the butt plate just peels off the back, and you can store pellets or a boar snake or whatever you like back there. It's handy. Okay, the rifle comes bundled with Crosman's crappy 4x32 bundled scope and ring. It does not, however, come with the heavy-duty rings that are shown on the box. Here you can see the two scope rings. They are very low profile. They come with one screw on each side of the cap for each ring. The rear scope ring has two mounting screws, and it has a scope stop pin, whereas the front scope ring has a single mounting screw. Out of all the air rifles that come bundled with 4x32 scopes, Crosman's Centerpoint 4x32 is the absolute worst. I find the one on the Beeman air rifles is quite usable up to 20 meters. The Gamos are usable up to 20 meters. Even the Rugers are not all that bad. But the Centerpoints are just terrible. At 20 meters you can see the target, but it looks like you're looking through a wormhole. And on this particular one, it was one of the worst ones I'd seen. And after about 80 shots, the reticle turned. So I'll show you that. Okay, I took this one out and I did some target shooting until the reticle turned. I tried mounting a Optima 3 to 9 by 32 scope off of one of my Hudson air rifles, and that one wouldn't hold center. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to mount the center point scope off of the MTR77 NP that we've got, and we're going to move the target into 15 meters, which should be more within the range of this scope. We're also going to have to do something about the trigger. It is just a super long travel. Before we get to that, let's go over some of the numbers. Okay, I already said the rifle weighs 5.8 pounds. It's 40 inches long, so it's lightweight, easy to carry in the woods. It's short, extremely maneuverable when you're trogging through the brush or even in close quarters. It is very compact. With the short barrel, this barrel is 15 inches long with a large muzzle brake, giving you a good grip for cocking it. Whereas the TR77 is 43 inches long and the barrel is 2 inches longer. And the TR77 measured at 34 pounds of cocking effort, with the final stage of the cocking effort down as low as 28. Whereas this one is upwards of 38 pounds. Anywhere near as hard as like the MTR77 NP, but it is harder than most. It's not all that bad, and they claim that it is a quiet rifle. I have not found that to be true. We got decibel readings with the alloy ammunition at 113.9 decibels, and shooting the heavier lead pellets, it still averaged between 100.5 decibels and 104.3 decibels. So it's not exactly backyard friendly. But for power numbers, it does deliver. Even though it's got a shorter barrel. Let's take a look at the power numbers from the RWS Hypermax 5.2 grain alloy pellets and the RWS Hobby 7 grain lead pellets. Okay, we'll be shooting 5 rounds of RWS Hypermax 5.2 grain alloy pellets. Okay, we had a low of 1,177 feet per second. I have 1,189 feet per second. Average of 1,181 feet per second. Extreme spread of 12.82, which is not bad for alloy ammunition. Standard deviation 4.89. We got a high decibel reading of 113.3. And now we're going to shoot 5 rounds of RWS Hobby 7 grain lead pellets. Okay, we had a low of 996.7 feet per second, a high of 1,005 feet per second, average of 999 feet per second, or extreme spread of 8.28 feet per second, standard deviation 3.6. Now you can't get much closer to the claim. Okay, as you can see, this rifle came within 1 foot of the advertised feet per second shooting lead pellets. So I am now going to call Crosman on the carpet for their lies about muzzle energy. I ground Gammo into the ground about their excessive claims about feet per second, and they never delivered. And Crosman, they're very honest about their feet per second, but they're always claiming more foot-pounds muzzle energy. If you figure the 7 grain pellet at 1,000 feet per second is only 15.55 foot-pounds of muzzle energy. To generate 18 foot-pounds of energy, the pellet traveling 1,000 feet per second would have to weigh 8.11 grains. So it just ain't going to happen. Crosman, get your math straight. Okay, shooting the RWS Hypermax 5.2 grain pellets, this rifle averaged 19 feet per second less than the spring version. Shooting the 7 grain RWS Hobby pellets, it averaged 5 feet per second less. But shooting the heavier lead pellets, this rifle did much better than the spring version did. Shooting the JSB Diablo Exact Heavy 10.34 grain pellets, the gun averaged 822.6 feet per second. That was 14.4 feet per second faster than the TR77 spring version. Shooting the Crosman Premier Ultra Magnum 10.5 grain pellets, it averaged 821.4 feet per second. That was 12.1 feet per second faster than the spring version. The most powerful pellet was the H&M Barracuda 10.65 grain pellet. It averaged 836.6 feet per second, generating 16.56 foot-pounds of muzzle energy. The most consistent pellet was the H&M Barracuda Hunter Extreme 9.26 grain. It averaged 870.2 feet per second with only a 2.75 foot extreme spread, standard deviation of 1.41. And the second most consistent pellet was the H&N Crow Magnum 9.26 grain. It averaged 858.8 feet per second, 6.77 per second extreme spread, 2.82 standard deviation. Across the board, some of the more consistently powerful pellets, all generating over 16 foot-pounds muzzle energy, was the RWS Superpoint 8.2 grain, the RWS Superdome 8.3 grain, and the JSB Match Diablo Exact 8.44 grain. All those pellets were anywhere from 926 to 938 feet per second. They all generated between 16.02 and 16.09 foot-pounds muzzle energy. Now, as far as noise is concerned, even shooting the heavier pellets, the gun averaged 100.5 to 104.3 decibels. Okay, before we go any further, I'm going to show you my last target shooting session and show you the rifle's accuracy with the handicap trigger and the bad scope, and then we'll go from there. Okay, I've only shot about 100 shots through the gun. Coming out here in target shooting, I was using mostly the Crosman Premier Ultra Magnum 10.5s, but the grouping just started going away, so I switched to the Crosman Premier Hollow Point 7.9 grain, and after half a dozen shots it looks pretty good, so let's try it at 20 meters. Okay, I think this rifle has the ability to be a very accurate rifle, but being handicapped by both the scope and the trigger, I'm going to try and take away one of the handicaps. So we're going to do one of my trigger fixes. I'm going to start out with the 5x10 by 3 millimeter brass washer and put that in there and see how the trigger works, and then we're going to take it out and try it from 15 meters rather than 20 meters, which should be within the range of the scope, and we'll see how accurate this rifle is. Okay, we're all set to go, so let's time this and see how long it takes. Seven minutes and 54 seconds, and that was with a very, very stubborn pin that didn't want to go in. Okay, these are our 4 scenarios for fixing a Crosman trigger. This 5x10 by 3 millimeter brass washer could only be used on possibly the absolute worst Crosman triggers. That washer with the hole enlarged, so it kind of mimics the thickness of the 4x9 by 3 millimeter RC bearing. It's probably easier just to get the RC bearing. And if that's too thick, our last resort is the 5x8 millimeter by 2.5 millimeter RC bearing. The 4x9 bearing was a little bit too much for this gun, so I have installed the 5 by 8 by 2.5 millimeter bearing into the trigger. There you can see that's about how it profiles. That's the kind of thickness you want to shorten the trigger. If it comes up closer to the surface of the trigger frame, it's probably a little bit too thick, unless you have the absolute worst triggers. So now I'm going to put this back in the gun. Okay, I just got done shooting 5 groups of 5 pellets, 5 different pellets, and the ones that seem to have grouped the tightest, lower left are the H&N Cro-Magnums, and the upper left is the Crosman Premier 7.9 grain hollow points. So I'm going to do 2 more tests between those two and determine which one to do our accuracy test with. Now the group upper left is the H&N Cro-Magnum, and the upper right is Crosman Premier Hollow Point 7.9 grain, surprisingly. So we are going to do our accuracy test with the Crosman Hollow Point 7.9 grains. Well, that red dot's about the size of a dime. I suppose I have a dime here. Covered all 5 holes with the dime, so that's 15 meters, 49 feet 2 inches. You may as well say 50 feet. That's the outer limits of the scope's ability to be usable. I think the rifle's got the capability of being accurate a lot farther away, but it's going to need a new scope to do it. Okay, I moved the target back to 20 meters again, but we're going to give 5 more shots with this thing. Well, I missed with the last shot, but that bullseye is smaller than the size of a dime. So that is incredibly accurate considering the crappy scope that's on it. Well, to sum it all up, I think Crosman has another hit on their hands. You know, it's just sad that they can't put a usable scope on it and a usable trigger. The trigger wasn't, you know, as bad as some, but it was pretty darn long and even stiffer than a lot of them. I've got it, it's a pretty fine trigger right now with the 5 by 8 millimeter bearing in it. They could have put a silencer up here rather than just a muzzle brake. I think it would have made a lot more sense because this gun is kind of loud. It doesn't really sound like it to me, but all the decibel readings are over 100 decibels. Even the MTR77 NP is much quieter than this one for some reason. It's a loud rifle. It's stiff to cock, but not as bad as the MTR77. It's about 38 or 38.5 pounds through the mid-range of the cocking stroke, and then it drops down to about 28 pounds of cocking effort on the final bit of the cocking stroke, so that's not quite so bad. And it's got the same stock as the regular TR77. It's a tactical style, very comfortable pistol grip. It's easy to shoulder. You do have to have the scope a little bit farther up on this thing because the stock is shorter than a regular stock, but you know, you've got a little bit of storage back there. You know, you really could use a decent scope. As far as performance goes, it's got the power, and once broke in, it's got the accuracy. This thing probably put about 200 pellets through it. It was still coming in as we were testing pellets. And the final few shots were incredibly smaller than just 40 or 50 shots prior. You were watching the rifle come in right along with me. I really like the rifle. It's easy to shoot. I got a feeling this one would be a good rifle to shoot from the shoulder. The lighter rifles have a tendency to be more accurate shooting from the shoulder. The heavier ones, you seem to wobble a lot more. So if you're hunting squirrels up in the trees or rabbits out in the field, this gun should really get the job done. It's got the power, it's got the accuracy. You're probably going to want to put a different scope on it and a different set of rings. I was amazed that this scope actually held center with those rings for, well, they've probably been on there for 100 shots now, and it did hold center. They do have the scope stop peg in the rear ring, so you know that does help, but that doesn't keep the scope from slipping back through the rings. I think that could eventually be a problem, especially as the rings stretch a little bit with time. So for the price, it's not widely available yet. Places like Pyramid Air and Airgun Depot and Airgun Warehouse do not stock this thing yet. There's just a few places out there that have it. I believe Crosman shows it for $159.95 on their website. It's a good gun if you've got the strength to cock it. You know, a 13-year-old might have a little difficulty, but any strong teen or adult should not have any problems with it. You can do some serious varmint hunting, and with a good scope you can do some serious target shooting with this thing. So the rifle is definitely worth the money. It's worth the upgrade from the regular TR77. I know Walmart's got a version out now called the Fury 2 Blackout. Some people have tried to say that that one does have a nitro piston. I took a look at one. It does have a spring in it, but it is only $98. But this, you know, we've already gone through with the TR77, and this one is the nitro piston version with the short barrel. I think, you know, if you can find one online for a reasonable price, grab it. I'm quite sure Pyramid Air and Airgun Depot and the others are going to have this one out pretty soon. So I know the release date was summer 2013. So if you see one, it's a good gun. You probably have to doctor up the trigger a little bit. You're going to have to put a decent scope on it. But once you do that, you got a really, really nice rifle. And it's even accurate with Crosman Premier hollow points, which are an inexpensive pellet to buy, and you can get them everywhere. Thank you for watching this review.